Hey, what's up and welcome to the channel. My name is Aaron and right now we are inside the shred spot. This is where I make all of the trials tutorial videos, and today we're going to do something just a little bit different. I made a video a while back called the easiest way to do gaps, and I went through step by step all the different things that you need to do in order to learn wheelie gaps. Now Ross, aka Yoda guy from our Twitch chat, had a video that he shared with me, which was him learning this move and some of the issues he encountered really following through on the tutorial that we made. And I'm guessing that if he's having these issues learning it, you might be as well. So I'm gonna run through his video and we're gonna talk about the steps that might improve his ability to get this move locked in. And we'll run through every single thing you need to know. Just a little bit of background before we get started with this. The wheelie gap, I think, is the easiest way to learn gaps. And the reason for that is that most people can do wheelies already, and it's something that helps you get a little bit more momentum so you can actually get some decent distance going when you're doing gaps. So if you can wheelie, if you can lift your bike off the ground, it should be relatively easy to get this process going. But there are certainly some nuances, which is exactly what we're gonna dive into today. I'm gonna give you kind of a rundown of what Ross is doing right, what he might be doing wrong, and some other ways to approach potentially learning this move in another way. So there is a full tutorial on this channel if you want to dive super deep into this. Maybe you've already seen it at this point, but really what you want to be doing is thinking about a few different things: what your handlebars are doing and how you're pedaling into this gap. The pedaling into the gap is what really gives us the momentum to make the big jump. The other way to do gaps is to pedal kick the gaps, but you usually start from a standstill and you're not carrying any real momentum with you when you do it. So it's a little bit harder to get the complete distance that you could if you were going to do this move. One last thing before we dive into everything. If you're having trouble with any of the moves that I've taught here on the channel, you can absolutely join us in the Twitch live stream, which happens every Tuesday and Thursday morning, and ask the questions right there and I'll give you the full breakdown. Or there's a Dropbox link below. You can put your footage in there and we'll make a video with it. Here we go. This is great because what Ross did was he gave us the perfect side view of him practicing this move. And what's even better, he showed us that he can actually do pedal kick gaps. And we're looking at this right here. And a few things that I want to pick out specifically is that his side-to-side balance is really great. One of the things that a lot of people struggle with when they're working on gaps is that they can't keep the bike straight. They're off to one side or off to the other. And by showing me his pedal kick skills, I know for sure that that's not an issue we need to worry about. I don't have to tell him anything about using his knees to balance the bike side to side. He's got that part wired, which is actually a really important part on the bike. The other thing I would say as we're kind of getting into this three pedal movement is that his body position is actually in about the right place that you would want it to be. I would also say that he's picked the right spot to practice this. There's no need to learn this across a gap or off a really tall ledge or anything like that. He's eliminated all of the risk that goes into learning this movement. Lastly, just by watching what he's doing on the pedal kick gap, I can see that he has the landing locked in. He knows how to sink onto that back wheel and really lock it down where it needs to be. So all the basics of being able to do a gap, Ross has got pretty locked in. So those are all the positive things that I could say about Ross's riding, and clearly he must have been watching this channel for quite some time if he's riding at this level. All right, now let's dig into some of the stuff that I would want to work on with him. And the number one thing that may be obvious to some of you watching at home is his speed coming into the movement. He's actually going into the wheelie gap a little bit too fast. And when you think about doing a wheelie gap, you want those pedal strokes to really make a big difference. It should be this dynamic acceleration into the gap. If you're already moving a little bit too fast, pedaling a couple times extra isn't gonna give you that big dynamic movement to make the gap happen. So what I would suggest to troubleshoot this is actually for Ross to stop pedaling, go really slow up to the point where he wants to take off, and then almost to a stop, and then jam on those pedals to get over the ledge. One other thing that Ross could do here if he wanted to practice this in a different location is actually practice exactly that, but off of like a curb height ledge so that he gets that takeoff just right. You don't have to gap super far off it. You can just be focusing about jumping down. But I think that having a ledge to three pedal off of will actually give you a better feeling for the takeoff and getting that momentum in time for the takeoff. The next thing I would say for Ross is that he needs to lean back and let his back wheel lead a little bit more. He's still over the front of the bike as he's doing this. almost in like a bunny hop position. And what you really need to do is try to get the bike as vertical as possible here. You pull those handlebars toward you and you snap to pull the bike vertical so the back wheel starts to lead a little bit more. And lastly, I talked about this snap where you're pulling your handlebar up towards your chest really quickly, which helps shoot the back wheel out. One of the things that I also suggest is to try, when you're doing that original pedal, to keep your front wheel as low as possible, and so you can snap both the front wheel and that handlebar up even higher and farther. If you're already wheeling and your handlebars and your front wheel are too high, then there's nowhere left to go. So think about kind of being real low and stealth to the ground. You're just lifting that front wheel off a little bit, and then you really make a big snap. One of the other pieces of advice that Dabble from our Twitch chat talked about was thinking about looping out with momentum and then staying with the bike. It's amazing how much further you can push that back wheel before you actually loop out. And just getting into that feeling is an interesting way to really get confident with putting your back wheel out in front of you. So we have a little bit of an update video from Ross, and the best thing about the Twitch live stream that we do every Tuesday and Thursday, you can come in there and get this instant feedback, and that's exactly what Ross did. We looked at the first part of this video with him, he went back, adjusted, and filmed another part, and you can see the progress that he's made just over the past week of practicing this movement. Now, the one tweak I would make with his riding here in the second video is that he's still a little bit far forward on the bike, so I would adjust his body position just slightly back, but overall, he's basically got it. The next thing that I would do in Ross's position, I would actually start three-pedaling off of small obstacles like a curb to get a really good feeling for where that back wheel is and where your pedal timing is with the takeoff. Because where Ross is gonna go from here is actually gapping between two features. And so if he's working on getting that back wheel placement and knowing when it's gonna go off the ledge there, he's gonna be really great at timing out his explosive movement to make the gap happen. So for Ross, awesome work. You're making huge progress. Now just focus on the takeoff, focus on getting a good feel for where that takeoff point is, and you're good to go. One last thing, I gotta give props to Ross because he was the first person to share a video of him trying to learn something. He went first, he's brave, and honestly, I feel like it's really helpful for everyone to see someone in progress of learning a move. It's easy for me to sit here and troubleshoot and to talk through some of this stuff, and maybe it's not as easy just to watch me, who's had many, many years of riding and doing these movements, just effortlessly pull some of this stuff off. So big thank you to Ross for doing it. And Ross, I know that on the Discord trial server, your username is manpurse, and to that I just need to say,
plus it's not a man purse, it's called a satchel.
So I hardly ever do this, but because it's in service of other trials riders learning this move, one thing that will actually make it easier for them to find it is if you smash the like button right now. Hopefully you already have, and maybe even subscribe to the channel. But honestly, there are probably a handful of people out there trying to figure out this movement, and you can help them out by doing exactly that. If there's a movement that you're struggling with, feel free to hit that Dropbox link that's in the description, or come join us on the Twitch chat. If you want to go back to the original tutorial that we did on this movement, here's the link for it right here.